Hello and welcome to another episode of the FemiNinja Project. And as always, I have a fantastic guest with me today. I just can't say enough about him. He's also a very brave man because he sought me out and asked to be on the show. So any man that wants to be a guest on the FemiNinja Project is okay in my book. His name is Carl Berryman, and he is a certified personal trainer turned men's health advocate and coach. He is also the host of the Inspired by Impact podcast, which is a podcast for men that explores what it takes for men to push through the fear of intimacy, overcome depression, find their lives' true purpose by taking what works inside the gym and applying it to everyday life outside the gym. Carl, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. Like I said 1,001 times already before we hit record, I was very much looking forward to this all week. So thank you for having me.
Oh, you are so welcome. I've been looking forward to it as well. And I did check out your podcast and I listened to the episode of our mutual guest, Mark Passant. And
Okay.
thank you for the shout out. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. No problem at all. I was hoping you would catch that.
I certainly did. Okay, so Carl, tell us how you began this journey into, number one, just becoming a personal trainer and what motivated you, and then how it transitioned into more of being a men's advocate and for health and mental health, basically, as well as physical.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as with a lot of people, typically it's some kind of rock bottom moment or some type of realization you're going to have. So for me, becoming a personal trainer, I've been a personal trainer for 12 years now. And honestly, it was just me following the typical roller coaster of going to the gym for 3 weeks, being off for 4 weeks, committing for 6
Mm.
months, and then going off for 3 months. And just, I was getting so tired of that roller coaster that I just decided, and I had a passion, I've had a passion for fitness ever since I was younger. I would train people when I was in my late teens and 20s because they saw me getting results. So even though I wasn't certified, I was training people.
Mhm.
Um, but I decided, you know what? If I get a job at a gym, then I have no excuse not to get to the gym. So I became
Mm.
a trainer, and as soon as that happened, you have, from my opinion, anyways, I can't go into a class or with a client and not be able to demo what I want them to do, and I can't not look the part. Otherwise,
Mhm.
there's no credibility. So that worked out really well. But the another big reason I became a trainer was because my first, I guess, love with health and fitness started when I
Mm.
was 19 years old. My father passed away in his sleep when as a result of the number one leading cause of death in the world, which is heart disease, right? And that
Oh,
was
I'm
an
so sorry.
yeah, thank you. It was without a doubt the single most transformational experience I've ever had. My family completely split up after that. Like my mom and my sister moved out of the province, and then my brothers were here in the province, but we completely lost touch with each other, and it
Oh.
was a horrible experience that has turned into a gift because I realized, like, I don't want this. I don't want anybody else to have to go through this. Like, I
Mhm.
don't, yeah, and even today, like, there's still people in my life, obviously, that I take for granted. But at the same
Mm.
time, like, to just literally go to bed one night, dad's fine, wake up the next morning, and dad's gone.
How old was
And
he, Carl? He must have been young.
66,
Ooh,
66.
that's my
So,
age.
yeah. So, yeah, it was, which is young, right? When you think
Right.
about it. So yeah, that was a big thing. But then what shifted to the whole men's health thing was in 2020, I had another kind of rock bottom moment where I had one of those things on December 4th where I'm like, "Hey, I'm going to get a jump on New Year's. I'm really going to, like, transform my body." And keep in mind, I'm a trainer. I've been a trainer for a while now, and I was by no means in horrible shape, but
Mhm.
when I looked at myself in the mirror, I actually took a picture and realized I had taken a picture the exact day a year before, 2019, and nothing had changed. So I was just completely disgusted. And then, for whatever reason, a question popped in my head and said, "Carl, if you've been fooling yourself with your body thinking you're doing everything right and you're not making any progress, where else are you fooling yourself?" So I
Wow.
found I was fooling myself in my relationship with my partner, Jenny Lee. I was fooling myself with regards to my mental and emotional health, because there were days where, even though I was doing what I love for a living, I had to drag myself out of bed. And a lot of times I couldn't. I would lie and cancel on my clients because anxiety and panic and depression were just wreaking havoc in my
Mhm.
life.
Mhm.
So made a applied some really quick and simple strategies to my life that allowed me to
Mhm.
transform in every single area. And then finally, that brings us to last November, when it was Men's Mental Health Month. And I started doing a lot of research on men's mental health and realized I'm not the only guy who's going through these things. Like 70% of divorces are initiated by women, 80% of suicides are men. And the more I looked into it, the more I realized I was not alone in thinking and feeling and experiencing the stuff that I was. So I need to have a voice that will help other men realize they're not alone either. So that brings us to today.
I am so impressed, and I really and very grateful to you that you're doing that kind of work. I feel like there's a movement right now
Mhm.
on men's mental health, men's
Yep.
needs. And one of the reasons why I always love having men on my show is I think there's way too much man bashing going on right now. And it's been happening for a
Huh.
long time, but it's almost like it has crescendoed to, you know, an unbelievable, I can't imagine what it must be like to be a man right now. The amount of pressure that you're under must be incredible. And I'm saying this as a woman.
I Cheryl, I can't tell you how much that means to me and how much that's going to mean to other men to hear that, because I had another woman on my podcast. Her name's Erin, and she's more kind of a holistic trainer, but she combines personal training with life
Mhm.
coaching.
Mhm.
And she's had it primarily for women. And one of the things she said is, and I couldn't believe it when I heard her say this. She said, "I can't imagine how hard it is to be a man these days."
Mhm.
And for a man to hear a woman say
Mhm.
that is like, hold on a second. Did I hear that correctly? Because you're right. It's that men, we are supposed to know everything. Everything's supposedly easy for us. We have all the benefits that women don't have, and
Mhm.
women have to go through things that we'll never go through, which are all entirely true. But that
Mhm.
doesn't mean we don't have our own struggles.
Mhm.
So trying to navigate those waters as a man when it does feel like sometimes the world is completely bashing down on you has
Mhm.
obviously taken its toll, and facts really don't lie when it comes to the divorce and the suicide and the depression and
Mhm.
everything like that. And I'm all about that. I've been
Mhm.
divorced.
Mhm.
I've come extremely close to suicide twice in my life. Once
Oh.
wasn't all that long ago. So I and depression is a thing that
Mhm.
I once upon a time would say that I'm managing, but I'm working on eradicating right now. So
Mhm.
I know what that's like. Yeah.
Mhm. Well, I always tell people that I wouldn't be where I am right now if it were not for the very many magnificent men in my life. Some of
Mm.
them, okay, might not have been quite so magnificent, but I wouldn't be here today, literally, because I swear
Yeah.
that getting into martial arts and training actually did really save my life. And I
Mm.
wouldn't have been able to do it without the guys because there were no other women in the class.
None at all, eh?
Well, no, there was me, and then we did get a couple of more ladies as time went on, but
Yeah.
yeah, so it was kinda hard being the only, middle-aged ballet dancer in a room full of big, strong men whose goal was to beat me up, so yeah, it was really crazy.
Now that takes a lot of courage as well. Like, it's one thing to reach out to somebody like you and invite myself onto your podcast, but to step onto the mats with some big men like that in that environment, that takes a lot of courage.
Well, thank you for saying that, but it really wasn't courage, it was out of desperation. I was
Oh,
going through a really rough time and had had a traumatic experience, and my sensei actually had been my acupuncturist before he was my sensei, and
okay.
he tried to convince me, again, it took 3 years, that training in martial arts would really help me recover, and it's like, "I'm sorry, I don't see how that is gonna be possible. Hanging out in a smelly dojo with a bunch of
Yeah.
sweaty men, I'm a ballet dancer, we don't do stuff like that," but, turned out okay.
Yeah, it seems like it did.
Yep, yep, and it's a lot of fun, and here I am, I'm still training today. I will be
That's
going to the
awesome.
dojo this afternoon.
That's awesome. That's awesome, Cheryl.
Okay, so then you decided when you're going through this and now you're at a point where, you're training and now you have this awareness of how men are being treated in our society today, because I think it's heinous, I think it's terrible, and I think it's shameful, but how men are being treated, and that you're struggling with these mental health issues. And then you come to realize that you're obviously not the only man who is going through this. So how did you then transition from being the personal trainer into the advocate for men's health?
Well, one of my biggest pet peeves as a trainer, let me rephrase, not one of my biggest pet peeves, one of my regrets, that can also be a pet peeve, is that one of the things I noticed, the number one reason I became a trainer was to help people improve the quality of their lives. And I figured if I help them improve the quality of their health, those two will go hand in hand. They do not at all, because I have been above average physically healthy for a very long time now. And still, I was the guy who was completely not present in my relationships, whether that's with my significant other or with my friends or my family. I was the guy who would have to lie to people and avoid going out because I just couldn't face being around people. And I would just sit on the couch and binge on Netflix or whatever and order in a bunch of crap food and just be completely deterring myself from the inside out. So I realized that obviously something needs to change here, because the same thing's happening with my clients where, sure, they can come in and they're seeing their clothes fit way better and they're definitely stronger, which is awesome. And it's seeing them lift stuff that they couldn't lift before. And yet we're spending the entire session talking about how stressed they are about at work. They never bring up their partners because they don't want to talk about what their relationship is like with their partners. And I can see they're miserable. I'm like, I'm not making a difference in anybody's life here. Sure, like physically, don't get me wrong, the physical aspect is extremely important, but there's so much more to life than how many push-ups or pull-ups you can do. And I just realized, like, this purpose that I was once that I believed I was once here to serve is no longer serving me. So I had to move on. And it was actually really simple, because it was super hard, but not hard, challenging and time consuming, but simple in that one day when I was looking in the mirror and I realized, okay, I'm lying to myself everywhere. I also realized that if I can transform my body, which I did in a very short period of time, if I just apply the same principles and strategies to everywhere in my life, chances are I'll get the same results. And that's what happened. And so since then, I've just been having way deeper conversations with amazing men like Mark Payson. And we've been diving into, okay, guys, like, yeah, great. We're getting to the gym. We're doing all this stuff. What's your PR look like in your relationship? One of the things that I recently discovered, I'm super happy about this. I started listening to a book called The Depression Cure. And as I'm doing my journaling experience that I do every single morning, I realized that I've been tracking my mental and emotional health for several years now, but I haven't really set a PR for it. Like, I haven't really tracked it the way that I should. So the past week or so, I started tracking what my emotional health is like on an hour-to-hour basis every single day, and how much time I'm spending ruminating, because it's the ruminating that would get me to go into my depressive states, because I get one negative seed and then I start going down rabbit holes. So I've started just really doing a lot of that stuff. And I'm finding that the men that I talk to about the stuff that I'm doing, it's like they have this sense of relief because somebody's finally putting to words and bringing to awareness something that they either weren't aware of at all, or they were aware of and they just didn't know how to express yet.
Okay, I want to go back to that, like the journaling of the emotional, like check-in every single hour, and you were actually writing it down. And I just want to clarify that for the audience, because at first when I heard that, I thought, oh my gosh, that must be incredibly time consuming. But it's not really once you get started.
It's not at all. It's not at all. And it's funny that you mentioned that, Cheryl, because last night with my partner, Jenny Lee, we always have what are called Tune-Up Tuesdays. So on Tuesday, whether we listen to a podcast together or we just have a conversation about something that might be a little triggering for either of us, we know that Tuesday night we'll do it. So yesterday we're sitting out on the patio having a beer, and I was telling her about how I'm tracking that stuff. And she pointed out right away, she's like, I can totally tell a change in your demeanor since you've been doing that. So I got her to mention how, and she expressed that. But I told her, like, there are times where it's like, oh man, I got to go grab my little notebook I got from the dollar store and write this down. But like today, I was up early today. I got up at 3 because I had to go drive friends to the airport, and then I had my personal training clients, and then I work out, and my morning routine's like an hour and a half. So, um, anyways, I just write down 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then it takes literally 30 seconds to fill out all those times. I fill out 3 things. Number 1, I fill out how many minutes I feel like I spent ruminating on negative things.
Mm-hmm.
So that one's been 0 a lot. It's no more than 15. One morning it was half an hour, but usually no more than 5 minutes. And then I rate myself on an emotional scale from -3 to +3. So -3 being my darkest of times, +3, I'm on top like I am right now. Like
Mm-hmm.
when I write down 10 o'clock, it's going to be a +3 for sure, because this is an awesome experience. So, and then I write down what I was doing so that I can see if there are patterns
Mm-hmm.
in when I have negative numbers. And I notice a pattern already when I'm on YouTube. That's when I get my negative numbers, like just kind of scrolling, whatever. Right. But
Mm-hmm.
long story long with that one, it literally on the hour, it takes about 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question I'm asking myself is my relationship with Jenny Lee and me being present and being the best partner I can for her worth 5 seconds of my time?
Mm-hmm.
And when I phrase it like that, it's like, not only that, if I'm not taking this for her, if I'm not doing that for my clients, if I'm not doing that for the brothers in my life, man, it's going to take another hard wake up call. And I'm not willing to let it be a negative wake up call again. I don't want that to happen. So
Yeah. It's awfully hard to recover from.
yeah, it is.
I love having that. I actually couldn't even leave the house for a long time
Hmm.
if I didn't have my notebook with me. And I'm not talking a huge notebook. I'm like talking a little spiral notebook or whatever. And there are a lot of times when I would have to pull over and jot down some things because they would just pop into my head. And I cannot tell you how many notebooks I have here. And I wouldn't call it really journaling, but a lot of it's just like creative things that would pop out of nowhere.
Oh, okay. Okay. I was going to ask you if it was creative things or if it was dark things that you had to get on paper so they weren't ruminating in your head. So it was mostly like
It was
positive
mostly
creative
creative
things.
things. A lot of the
Yeah,
dark
yeah.
things I've pretty much beaten out at the dojo. I line
Oh,
up a couple
okay.
of guys
Okay.
and it's
I
like,
love that.
okay, your turn.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. And it's funny you mentioned that, because one of the things that I love about the gym, and I just had this conversation with a guy who was on my podcast a couple weeks ago, how we as men, I for sure have some rage and some anger in me. Like
Mhm.
those are two emotions, like, and it's never, rarely is it towards people. It might be towards other drivers, sure,
Of
but
course.
I'll never give anybody the finger or go, I'm not going to lie. There's sometimes I go cut people off, but at the same time, if I can go to the gym and use that as my vessel for releasing rage, like today when I was training and it's like, it's getting super hard and it's like, I've got 2 more reps to go. It's like, okay, that's where I've got to channel that kind of like inner beast a little bit. And
Mhm.
then all of a sudden when I come home, if Jenny Lee, for example, were to do something that could potentially trigger me, well, my
Mhm.
landmines are already like defected because I got rid of
Mhm.
all that stuff at the gym. So the gym and the mat at the dojo, perfect ways to get rid of that stuff that could come up and hurt us later on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's an incredible release.
Mhm.
And I never knew that I had that much power in me.
Mm.
I think I always knew that I had that much rage inside of me, but I didn't know I had that much power and the ability to release it. But we have my sensei's teacher. So it's my sensei's sensei. I remember my first seminar with him, and he actually said that he dated a woman who said to him one time, Chadwick, if you could channel all the rage that women have and capture it somehow, you would have enough energy to light up the world forever. Because as women, we're not supposed to have rage. You're a man, you're supposed to have rage.
Right. And I love hearing you say that, because really, if there's anything, I shouldn't, this might sound, I'm going to try not to sound arrogant here. I think if there's one thing that could really, really help us all out is that if we could see the similarities between men and women as opposed to the differences.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
you saying that you have rage, and like I'm looking at you and you're this beautiful woman that I can't, it's like, rage? Really? And so I'm like, and when I think about Jenny Lee too, my partner, she's just the sweetest and has the kindest eyes and sweetest face in the world. And to think about her having rage, it's like, really? But if she were to come on the mic right now, she would look at me like I'm crazy. She'd be like, yeah, it's in there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I actually use that as it's part of my little ninja disguise or whatever. Even
mhm.
to this day, of course, the guys know me way too well by now. But I'll always, when they're partnering with me, I'm just like, I'm just a helpless, harmless little
Oh,
middle-aged lady. And
yeah,
of course, now I'm
right.
past middle age, I think. But it's like, don't hurt me. I'm really delicate. I'm small. And it's like, okay, don't worry, don't worry. And it's like, boom. And I take them down, and it's a beautiful
Yeah.
thing. There's nothing more empowering and nothing that makes me feel more like a lady and more feminine than being able to take down somebody twice my size and half my age.
Mm, that's beautiful.
It's
Mm,
lovely.
yeah.
So yes, lady rage is a thing.
Lady Rage, I like it.
Okay, so then how did you start launching this program to work with guys, or was it just kind of like a smooth segue that just kind of happened?
It definitely was not a smooth segue that just kind of happened, that's for sure.
Uh-huh.
So for me, I guess I'd have to go back to 2017. 2017 is when I quit my corporate job to pursue my passion, which at the time was just strictly personal training. So I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to do that full time. And I knew that for me, anyways, I was in a really comfortable job that I really, really enjoyed, and it was getting paid very well.
Mm-hmm.
But I had told myself, I was there for 10 years. I told myself probably within the first 3 weeks of being there that I'm not going to last a year here. And then it was 10 years, and I saw all the other people that were lifers. And
Oh.
and in that environment, typically the people who are lifers, you see they kind of walk around lifeless. And I just didn't want that to be the case. So as soon as the 10-year marks came, I'm like, hey, Carl, you told yourself you were going to make stuff happen while you were working here. You didn't.
Mm-hmm.
It's time to burn the boats, because
Mm-hmm.
otherwise you're never going to make it happen. So 2017, I was looking for relationship counseling, because at the time my relationship wasn't all that great. And so I bumped into a guy by the name of Garrett J. White, who ran a program called Wake Up Warrior. It was a men's coaching group. Now, it was for married businessmen with children. Now, I was
Mm-hmm.
not really a businessman. I was what you'd call a entrepreneur. I didn't have kids and I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
married.
Mm-hmm.
But the program completely transformed my life, because he got us to do certain things, being introspective and share things
Mm-hmm.
among men that you don't normally hear men sharing. That really opened a door for me. But the thing that transformed my life more than anything with that, he had this process called a stack. And what a stack is, it's a series of questions that gets you to bring your emotions out onto paper and then figure out how you can use them as fuel and be very specific about a change you want to make in your life. So I started doing that every single day. And then over time, I tweaked it and started coming up with questions that I thought suited me a little bit better and fit my situation better. And there were 5 questions that I would ask, and I'd go to the dollar store and I'd get the spiral bound journals. And then I was like, you know what? Why don't I, why don't I turn this into a journal of my own? So after like 10 versions, I created this journal and I use it every single morning. And it's just asking 5 questions that essentially, like I say on my podcast, take you from inspiration to integration to ignite an impact you wish to see in your world. So I do this journaling experience every single morning, and that's the thing that I want. I shouldn't say I want other men to do as much. I would love if other men were able to get to know and love themselves as much as I have through this extremely simple process. So,
I absolutely love how you reworded or rephrased what you were trying to say. That's absolutely beautiful. When you said, I want, no, I shouldn't say I want, I would like to share,
yeah.
with other men. There's a big difference there.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious. Why do you say that?
Well, I'm also something, I mean, along with all the other things that I do, I have PT and all that stuff. I'm also something called a Feldenkrais practitioner. And it's a
A
form,
what? Sorry.
it's called Feldenkrais.
Okay, what's that?
It is a highly sophisticated form of neuromuscular re-education based on the scientific principle of neuroplasticity, which simply means that our
Oh,
mind, our brain, our nervous system is incredibly malleable and plastic and can
yeah.
change, during the course of our entire lifetime. We can interrupt patterns that aren't serving us well, just like you did. And introduce new patterns, healthier patterns to be able to come in. It
Okay.
works basically on the nervous system, and it's a system of movement where we focus more on the skeletal structure and the nervous system rather than the muscles. It's absolutely beautiful.
That
It's
sounds
it's such a
amazing.
powerful modality, and so I am a practitioner. It's a 4-year training program, and I got to tell you, it was pretty brutal.
I
And I
can't
was
imagine how intense that would be.
it was very intense because you're learning a new system as you're changing your patterns in yourself at the same time. And sometimes
Yeah.
you don't even know your own name, but it was wonderful. And one of the things we learned was the power of language and even how the things that we tell ourselves. And right now I have my
Mm.
little, I have a little bit of a ink at the dojo because one of the guys I was working with the past couple of times, we would be working out together. And then he would say, okay, I want you to do blah, blah, blah. And I'm
Okay.
looking at him going, I outrank you. So
Okay.
today I'm waiting for him. I can't wait to go to the dojo today because if he does that again, I'm just going to say, you know what? I really don't care what you want. It's not about what you want and what you want me to do. It's about what I want.
Hmm. Interesting.
So, mhm,
But yeah, you're right. Language is, it's very, we got to be careful. And this is one of the things that I love about having the brothers in my life
mhm,
is oftentimes if I have what I call a situation, like that's the first question inside of my journaling experience, which I call a training manual because I don't want it. When people hear journal, especially men, they're like, I'm not
right.
writing stuff down. That's a waste of time. I'm not going to do it.
Mhm,
Whereas like this is literally called the Brotherhood Bootcamp training manual because it's
mhm,
just like every single time you open it up, you're going to the gym. There's specific exercises you got to do.
mhm,
And so I was talking with my brother and um, I was telling him about a situation that I was going through that was pretty tough. And he pointed out some of my language that I was using that I wasn't even aware of. And I told him afterwards, I said, thank you for pointing that out. But this is why it's so good to have brothers in your life that you can talk to or people in your life that you can
mhm,
talk to. Because if you go to Google and just type something in, sure, it'll give you the answer, but it's not going to hear your language that you're using. So you may need to ask a completely different question. So my brothers, whenever I talk to them, they're like, "Okay, wait a second, Carl. Did you hear how you just said that?" And I'm like,
mhm,
huh. Okay. So now that I know what I'm really saying, I need to come up with a different question, possibly a better question. So yeah, language is incredibly important, which is why
yeah,
awareness is always going to be the first step so you can recognize what that language is.
mhm,
And that's one of the things the training manual is for. Every single morning I start off by writing out, like answering the question, what is your situation? And that's typically to do with a problem or challenge that I'm facing.
mhm,
And so at the end of that, I always ended off by asking a question that I know is going to elicit a very powerful answer, as opposed to, say, for example, something everybody can relate to. Why can't I ever lose weight? Okay, well, that's not going to yield a very powerful answer because you'll come
mhm,
up with answers to that and you'll have 10,000 excuses and reasons as to why
mhm,
not. Whereas what would the process look like if it were easy and enjoyable?
mhm,
Now that's a question that's going to give you some different answers. So
mhm.
yeah, long story long, language is
Yep.
important.
Do me a big favor, if you could, for the
Sure.
people who are watching this on the video, just show us the book again
Oh,
because
okay.
I didn't really. I mean, is this something that you sell on Amazon or?
No, not yet. This is just something I created for use for myself. I got a bunch printed and I sent them to my brothers who I care about and that wanted to learn about it. But this is essentially, um, I'm going to change the previous version. It's funny, I have it right here, was called Ignite the Impact
Uh-huh.
because my podcast, I always tell people, like, listen, don't just listen to this. Like when I listen to your podcast, Cheryl, I'm always listening for that one nugget that just
Mhm,
really hits home. Okay,
mhm,
so, but then what am I going to do with it? Because I was the king of content consumption without
Mhm.
ever actually doing anything with it.
Mhm.
And like I wake up 10 years later and wonder why my life hasn't changed when I've been a personal development junkie since I was early 20s and I'm 43 now.
Mhm.
And the reason it's not changed is because I'm not doing anything with it. Like you have to go beyond inspiration. So when I get a notable quotable, that's what I like to call it. Like I'll hear you say something like, "Oh, Cheryl, that was good." Then I'll take a timestamp because
Mhm.
I always listen to podcasts while I'm working out. So I take a
Mhm.
timestamp. So then I get home and I write down the notable quotable so I can
Mhm.
use that in this process
Mhm.
to make sure I'm taking action on the stuff that I'm learning.
Wow, there's so much personal accountability in what you just said and everything that you're saying. I love that.
Yeah, it gets tricky with personal accountability for sure because but at the same time, it's the same thing with why I became a personal trainer, right?
Mhm.
Because if I'm at the gym, like I have to be able to do the stuff that I'm telling other people to do.
Right.
So if I'm coaching men, I don't want to tell them what to do based on what I've heard works. I'm
Right.
going to I'm going to hear their question, tell them, listen, I don't know if this is going to work for you. This
Mhm.
is how I was in a similar situation. This is what I did that
Mhm.
didn't work. This is what I did that did. Try this on and see if it works for you. But I
Mhm.
try to always stick to principles because those are kind of universal as opposed to
Mhm.
strategies.
Mhm.
Strategies are good, don't get me
Mhm.
wrong, like they can be kind of cookie cutter, but at the same
Mhm.
time, principles, you're never going to go wrong with principles.
Mhm.
So that's what I usually try to focus on when brothers are asking me questions about stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I can't help but still be all fired up about that book. I just love that, and I think, I
Thank
mean,
you.
you could even have one for, men and one for women, or
Yeah, I've
just,
thought about that for sure. I've definitely thought
yeah.
about
I mean,
that. So
you definitely have some little gold nugget there at your fingertips.
thank you, Cheryl. I appreciate that. And I know that, but fear has kept me from putting it out in the world as much as I know I could. Fear
I
has
know.
definitely held me back from that.
Well,
So,
I understand because when you're putting yourself out there, and I think you even said this in the podcast that you did with Mark, or maybe it was even just in the intro about being vulnerable and connecting with other men. When you're being
yeah.
vulnerable, if you put something like that out there in the world, I mean, when I did my first book, it was very exciting to put it out in the world. The second
Hmm.
one, I hid under the covers for 3 weeks after it went live, after it was published, because I
Huh.
realized, oh my gosh, I can't get the genie back in the bottle. The story's out there now. And
Yeah.
I felt like I had taken off all my clothes and walked, down Main Street
Yep.
naked.
Hmm.
It's really
That's
rough.
definitely what it feels like. Yeah. As soon as you mentioned this book, I was looking at the two behind you. I'm like, you clearly know what this is like. And especially like you said, your second book, where I imagine you go into a little bit more personal detail.
Yeah.
That's not easy, but it's one thing I've found, and whether it's listening to a podcast or something like that, or even just seeing a post on Instagram, it's when people are brave enough to
Hmm.
share their vulnerability and show them how they are, and show others how they are hurting, how they've screwed up, how they're not perfect. That's the stuff people resonate with because
Hmm.
we're just bombarded with, this is the way to be perfect. This is how my life is so good. My marriage is like this and we never fight, we never do this. My body looks like this. It's like, no,
And that's not true.
that's 10% of everything that's
Right.
going on there. So let me see some stuff that's, you know what, maybe not going to be what you feel good enough to share, but at the same time, it's going to make somebody else feel really good because like we said earlier, it's it's nice to know that you're not the only one that struggles. It's nice
Right,
to know that.
exactly, exactly. But I have to tell you a funny story about it, though. It took 3
Okay.
weeks, and I finally calmed myself down, and it was like, "Okay, it's all right," because probably nobody who knows me is gonna read the book, and it's okay. I didn't care if strangers, people had never met me or would never meet me, read
Right.
it. It's like, that's fine. So I convinced myself that that's what was gonna happen. So then the next day, crawl out from underneath the covers, and I go to the dojo, and there's a copy of my book sitting on
Oh
Sensei's
my
desk, and it was like, "Oh,
goodness.
back under the covers."
That's embarrassing, eh?
But, and
Oh,
because he's definitely in the book, and he's like one of the main characters, and he's,
okay.
at sometimes the hero and sometimes the villain, and I mean, it's a real roller coaster ride. So it's like he's still talking to me, so I guess it turned out okay.
Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. How long ago did that book come out, Cheryl?
Last March, it's been just
Last
a
March.
little over a
Okay.
year.
Okay, that's
Mhm.
awesome. Good for you. That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
And
I'm
now
gonna have to pick your brain because I'm in the process of writing second book as well. So yeah, I
I
want to
kind
have
of
that one
figured,
done
I
by
was wondering,
July.
because as I'm listening to you talk, even from the very beginning, it's like there's a book in here. There
Yeah.
is a
Oh
book.
yeah. Yeah, there definitely is. There definitely is. I'm looking to have like the manuscript done by July 30th. So and now that I said
Wow.
it out loud, it has to happen. So
Of this
yeah.
year.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's going to be more, is it going to be more of a memoir or
It
self-help
is
or combo?
no, not self-help. It's going to be one of my favorite books that I read, that I got introduced to not too long ago, probably 2 years ago, is The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield.
Mm,
And it is a book that every human being needs, not would benefit from reading. He talks a lot about resistance and how to
mm,
recognize it in your life, how to overcome it when it shows up. And it's just, but the thing I love about it, and men will definitely like this, because I know a lot of us men aren't huge readers. I am. So
mhm,
it doesn't bother me, but every chapter, some of them will be one paragraph long. So you'll read the chapter title. There's no mistaking what it's about. And it's like a paragraph long, or it might be a page or a page and a half.
wow.
And so I'm like, this is powerful, because I can, if I'm having an issue, I can go to the whatchamacallit. Why can't I think of what the name of the list of the chapters is? Like the table of contents. I
Right.
go to the table of contents. And I'm like, okay, this is what I'm suffering with. I can flip to that page and I don't have to read a ton. It's going to be like one paragraph. So I've
Mhm,
wanted to do a book like that, but it's going to be all about the principles that work inside the gym and how
mhm,
to apply them outside the gym. So if you were struggling inside your relationship, let's say you're struggling with intimacy with your partner, which is something I am very familiar with. It's like,
mhm,
okay, one of the principles we use inside the gym in order to make sure that you continue working is
mhm,
dial down before you dial out. So I'll
mhm,
tell my clients, for example, today, one guy, we're doing clean and press with the kettlebell, and I can see that his back might start, it looks like it's bothering him. And I know he's got back issues.
mhm,
So I told him, okay, man, here's what you're going to do. Dial down to this kettlebell. It's
mhm.
much lighter. You can keep everything going a lot crisper and make sure you're engaging your core, all that jazz. So he grabs that and he keeps going. But a lot of people, oh, my back hurts. This is getting hard. I'll stop.
Mhm,
Well, no, you can still keep going. You just need to dial it down. So inside the
mhm,
bedroom, it's like, okay, you know what? I'm not totally geared up for sex right now. Okay, well, I don't want to just cut off date night. What can I do instead? Okay, well, maybe
mhm,
tonight's going to be a cuddle session, and that's
mhm,
it. But the
mhm,
funny thing is, whenever you dial it down, chances are it gets dialed back up at some point, especially in the bedroom. I found that as well.
mhm,
You just, it's like the hardest part is getting to the gym. Sometimes the hardest part is just getting into the bed. So just all those strategies that I've used over
mhm.
time that I've applied outside the gym is what's the book is going to be about.
So what you just described about both at the being at the gym and in the bedroom is actually a perfect example of Feldenkrais and how Feldenkrais works.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
about
That's pretty
slowing
cool.
down. It's about really, paying attention to yourself and your movement patterns, the
Hmm.
sensations in your body. So yeah, see, it's already in
Okay.
you.
That's awesome. I love it. I'm going to have to look that up for sure. That sounds so interesting.
It's really fascinating, and the man that developed it was a fascinating I'm writing my third book right now, and it's I love what you're doing with your book because it's absolutely brilliant. And I think people can really relate to that of taking the principles of what works in the gym and then
Hmm.
applying those same principles to everyday life. And what I'm
Yeah.
doing now is it's kind of like a follow-up on my ninja book.
Okay.
So it's more about a little bit more self-help, but a lot of stories in it as well. And it's kind of like the secrets of the warrior queen.
Okay.
And I struggled with it for so long because it was like the principles of martial arts and how to apply that to everyday life.
Mm.
And then I finally got a head smacking moment last week. And it was like, wait a minute, it's not just martial arts, it's Feldenkrais, because the two are so closely related and everything. So putting that together where people can take those principles and use them in everyday life, especially for
That's
women, the
cool.
martial arts end of it, because I think a lot of women could really benefit from those principles. But a lot of
Mhm.
women don't want to spend 20 years in a smelly dojo with a bunch of sweaty men the way I did.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I
Oh,
took the hits so they don't have to.
that sounds super cool.
So then now, when did you get the idea to start a podcast? Because starting a podcast is not a small thing.
Oh, no, it's not. Oh man. I What a journey that has been. I got the idea to start a podcast. It must have been, I'm going to say 2018. 2018, and then I sat on it. I sat on it. I sat on it. Like, I think, when did I pass the 1 year mark? Am I at the 1 year mark yet? Yeah, 1 year was February, I think.
Mhm.
So, but I had an idea what I wanted to do, but like so many things in life, again, taking the analogy of the gym, it's like, okay, well, I know I need to get to the gym because things are getting out of hand and
Mhm.
I got to start making some changes. Okay. But oh man, but first I got to go get the clothes. Oh, and now I got to figure out what I'm going to eat before I go. Oh, but you know what? I don't know about the gym membership. I'm going to have to figure out who's going to pick up the kids and all that stuff. And you start finding all these reasons not to start when really all the answers aren't going to come until after you start, which is
Mhm.
which is what everybody told me with regards to podcasting, because my first 25 episodes I uploaded and then I deleted because it took me 25 episodes to really kind of get an idea for what I really wanted to do. So I thought. And then when
Mhm.
I made the change, it wasn't until I'd have to look back because I just posted today, I think episode 75 went up today. So
Mhm.
kudos to you for being in the hundreds. How many episodes do you have now? Two something, right?
You, I think, are probably number 267.
There you go. And that to me is so unbelievably remarkable that like it's in, it's inspiring. Like I got to figure out how I'm going to catch you, but I won't catch you, but I will keep pace. But so it took me, I'm going to say, I think it was, I'd have to look. It might have been not until episode 35, 40-ish where I really started to get my groove and I
Mhm.
figured out, okay, and it's still constantly tweaking. Like
Mhm.
today, right before we started recording, I said, listening to your podcast with RJ and Dustin.
Mhm.
It's RJ, right?
RJ,
That was,
RJ
yeah, RJ.
Campbell
Yeah,
and
that's right.
Dustin Hoog.
Right. So when I listened to that podcast and then I listened to a completely different podcast called The Uncivilized Man, and I've been trying to figure out who I'm talking to in my podcast. And for a long time, it's been men, but like who
Mhm.
specifically? I'm like, well, my life coach, who I'm actually going to see right after this, she said something that was really interesting to me a couple of years ago. She said, Carl, your target market is the person that you used to be before you made your transformation. I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense.
Mhm.
But when I listened to RJ and Dustin talk, and then this other gentleman named Max, who's like a poet, and he was talking about porn and social media and their effects on the younger generations.
Mhm.
And I'm realizing, man, if I really want to have an impact on the world, I think the way that that's going to work is if I can impact the younger generations. But how do I impact the younger generations?
Mhm.
And it was either, I think it was RJ who said in the podcast, said, and I think he was talking about grandkids, but kids for
Mhm.
sure,
Mhm.
they don't, oh, what were the words he said? They don't, I can't remember the exact words, but it was what we all know, like do what I say, not what I do.
Mhm.
Right? Parents will think that all the time, do what I say, not what I do.
Mhm.
Well, guess what? Your kids are going to do what you do.
Mhm.
Now, I don't have kids, but I know I did the stuff that my parents did growing up. I know I did the stuff that my
Mhm.
siblings did growing up. I didn't do what they told me to do. I
Mhm.
did what I saw them doing.
Mhm.
So if we can get fathers to represent themselves as men, then the young men that they're bringing up will see what they are doing and, more importantly, who they are being. So
Mhm.
now it seems like the trajectory of my podcast is really going to be hyper focused on younger fathers so
Mhm.
that they themselves can become the example that they want for their children, specifically if
Mhm.
they have boys, they're young boys. So, yeah.
I dare say, even though that would be the focus, I'll bet a lot of women would listen to it
Yeah. And
because, yeah, and even when I have, men on the podcast, and when I hear their stories, I'll always say at the very end, share this with every, man share it with every
yeah.
woman everybody needs to hear this because the more we realize that, we're not separate there, we all want the same
Yep.
things out of life.
Yep.
And I think that we could make the world a better place just by sharing our stories and having these platforms. That's why I do this, is because I think that,
Mhm.
if we could communicate with each other, again, that man bashing, my goal is to make that go away because I just think it's really insulting.
Yeah.
And it doesn't do anybody any good. I couldn't imagine raising a boy child right now in this society.
Neither could I. I have, oh man, I've got so many friends who have young children. I'm like, man, like whether it's like newborns and stuff like that, like the younger generation who aren't plugged into tech and social media yet,
Right.
that's okay. But the ones who are like, they've got the technology, they're in their teens, like even right now, there's times where me as a man who I didn't grow up with social media, I didn't grow up with tech, I didn't get my first cell phone until I was in my 20s. So I didn't grow up with that stuff, right? But even right now, like there's times where I'm in the gym, it's like, I let this girl, like I'm just it's somebody going by, and I like to make a habit of making eye contact and smiling, because whenever I walk down the street and somebody smiles at me, like it just instantly brightens me up.
Mm-hmm.
So I make a habit of doing that, but I'm like, I don't want to come across as a creep. It's like,
Yeah.
hold on a second, Carl. If smiling at somebody makes you a creep, then you are falling into and supporting a horrible narrative. Like you need to be like, on my arm, I have tattooed, be the change you wish to see in your world. Right. So if I want to make that happen, I've got to first catch that narrative and realize, listen, if she thinks I'm a creep, that's on her, because I'm just smiling. And if
Mm-hmm.
she would, like, I've never had any woman say anything, but if some woman were to say, you know what, stop staring at me, I'd be, well, first of all, don't flatter yourself. But I was just smiling to be polite.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never had a woman get mad at me for smiling at
Mm-hmm.
her. But it is in the back of my mind that, especially like,
Wow.
and when I see women wearing some of the things that they wear in the gym that emphasize certain body parts,
Mm-hmm.
you have to do everything you can to not look in that direction. Like even if you're standing in front of a mirror, you can see it's like, no, I'm going to turn this way. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm in my 40s, and that's tough for me. I can't
Mm-hmm.
imagine what it would be like somebody who may not have had the opportunity to develop the right social skills because they've had devices in their hands for 24/7 since they were
Right.
5. I can't imagine what that would be like for young boys right now.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I have a real thing about social media as well as cell phones and women and cell phones. It drives me crazy because I see women walking down the street all the time or in the parking lot or, everywhere in public with their faces, glued to their phones. It's like,
Yeah.
people are seeing you and they're watching you and you have no idea who's watching you. Put the phone
Mhm.
down, lift up your head, look around. And it's amazing because I do what you do. Even if somebody's passing me by and they're kind of looking away, I'll just smile and say hi. And it's
Yeah.
amazing the response that you get.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think if we
It's
just
always
start to,
positive.
yeah, it is. And nobody's
Yeah.
ever said anything, or if somebody's walking by me and they smile, it's like, oh my goodness, a normal person. I'm so happy to see
Yeah,
somebody,
exactly.
who's
Yeah.
looking at their environment and they're looking at the people around them instead of their stupid phone.
Yeah. Yeah, that drives me crazy too. And it reminds me of one thing I saw years ago that I absolutely loved. It was a picture of, it was some type of red carpet event. And you see just this sea of people behind one of those like metal gate, like fences thing
Mhm.
that's only about waist high. And you see everybody's got their phone and they're holding it up and they're looking at their phone. And there's this one old lady who had to be in her 80s, just leaning over with the sweetest smile on her face. And it was just all about, here's the one person that is enjoying the present moment. Like, why
Mhm.
you spend so much money to go to these concerts and events to see them live, and you choose to look at them through your phone and completely miss an experience that you're capturing on your phone so you can look at it later, even though you know you're not going to be looking at it later because you're going to be capturing the previous experience that you forgot to be attentive to when it was happening. And so I'm with you on that
Yeah, that's insane. Yeah,
one.
I remember it was probably
Yeah.
just a few years ago. We were up in the mountains. I live here in Colorado, and we're up in the
Oh,
mountains.
that's beautiful.
Beautiful. It is a beautiful fall day. I mean, the colors were just incredible. The aspen were turning, and the sky was just this incredible, blue and clear, no clouds. I
Mhm.
mean, it's so glorious.
Yeah.
And my husband and I were sitting in front of the cabin that we had rented. We're sitting outside, just going, oh. And the family walked by, and there was one teenager, and she walked past with her face in the
Yeah.
phone. And I
Yeah.
said, look at that. She has no idea of this beauty that's all around her. There's this beautiful creek and just bubbling. Everything, it was just so perfect. And I thought, well, maybe,
Yeah.
okay, she's bored right now. The next day, walked by our cabin. Her head's in the phone. The entire time I saw that child, she had her face glued to the cell phone. And I thought, you have no
Yeah.
idea what you're missing.
Yeah. Hopefully one day she'll
Yeah.
realize.
Well, plus,
Yeah.
the ninja in me goes, safety first. Look at your environment, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true too. You don't want to be taking any spills over there, I guess.
Yeah, right. Okay, so Carl, where can people find you? And how can they get in touch with you? How can they get a hold of you?
Best place to find me will be on any place that has podcasts, so Spotify, Apple, whatever, and Inspired by Impact. There I've just been extremely fortunate to have some amazing guests on there who drop some amazing, what we call notable quotables for people to take action on. And then on the podcast, in the show notes also, I always so the journaling process that I do inside of this is called the Mental Muscle Up. And so I have a free downloadable blueprint of that in the episode, so that if people hear something or when they're listening to your podcast, they can just go through those 5 questions in order to go from inspiration to integration, right? So the podcast for sure, Inspired by Impact. And then on Instagram is where I'm most active, even though I'm 100% going to be delegating that pretty soon, so I don't have to spend any time on there.
Good for you.
At Ignite the Impact. Yeah, I find like I take it off my phone. The only time I put it back on my phone is when I'm getting ready to upload something. And then as soon as I'm done, I delete it from my phone so that I don't have, because I'll get the urge to go on and just scroll aimlessly. And I don't want to do that. So yeah, I just want to strictly use social media for posting valuable content that hopefully people can take something from. But that's at Ignite the Impact. So yeah.
So instead of just wasting your time and sucking your brain out by being on social media.
Yeah. Get back to going outside and going for those nature walks, because that's actually something that I started implementing as of not that long ago, as recommended by, we all know that walking's good for you, but it took me getting to a really, really bad depressive episode to get the depression cure book. And in that, he says like 30 minutes of vigorous walking is good. And I live in a beautiful neighborhood, so there's plenty of places to go that you don't hear anything except for the birds and the wind and the occasional dog. And it's just beautiful. So
it's fascinating. That's the kind of neighborhood I live in, thank goodness. And just the guest prior to you, previous show, actually completely transformed his life through walking.
It is remarkably simple and incredibly powerful. Like, just no phone. Like, I'll listen to a podcast every once in a while, but if I'm podcasted out, because I'll listen to 3 a day, just leave the phone, leave everything, just go for a walk. Maybe I'll take this so I can write down some notes, because like you, who knows when inspiration is going to strike, and you want to make sure you catch those ideas. So I write them down in there. And then but yeah, just getting away from everything. There's no way you can overstate how powerful that is, to step away from everything.
And it's affordable.
Yeah, usually most people can afford that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Carl, it has been an absolute delight having you on the show. I'm so appreciative that you tracked me down. You stalked me, which is fine. And until I agreed to have you on the show. So yeah, it worked out really well, didn't it?
It definitely did. It definitely did. And I can't wait to have you on my show. I hope I'm going to be putting that out there. That way there's some peer pressure from your audience to come on my show, so they can hear me pepper you with some questions, because you've said a lot of things here that I really want to dive deeper into. And I know there's a ton that not only me, but other men will be able to learn from you, and getting the female perspective is always incredibly insightful and valuable. So this has been amazing, Cheryl.
Once again, we need to talk to each other, not about each other.
Yes. I love that.
It's been awesome having you. And you have to promise me, though, that once you do get that book out to the world, you're going to let me know. You can come back on the show. We can talk about it, and we can promote it, because I think you're doing incredible work.
Thank you very much. That one is also due for July 30th. This one, it's just going to be a couple simple tweaks that I need to make, and because it's done. This is version 10. So
it's absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. You should see the first editions. They are anything but.
I know. I understand.
Man, did it take? You definitely know what that's about. It took.
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
I told one of my sisters, I've got 4 of them, and I recently told her, because this 3rd book that I'm working on, And I said, right now, it is just nothing but a great big pile of steaming crap. And she goes, oh, that makes me want to read it already.
Nice.
But yeah, but you know how it is. Okay, so before we sign off, Carl, do you have one specific pearl of wisdom? You've given us so much wonderful information, fabulous tips that we can all use, not just men, but any one pearl of wisdom that you want to leave the audience with that they can kind of mull over in their heads for the rest of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, it's always going to be the same, because this has saved me from committing suicide. This has saved my relationship with Jenny Lee. This has saved me giving up on my business. This has saved me from going down a road to poor health. And it's really simple. If you want to improve the quality of your life, you have to improve the quality of the relationships with the people you love the most. That's it. Like for me, I learned that the hard way, where I have something that I follow called the PrEP work, which is purpose, health and fitness, relationship health and fitness, emotional health and fitness, and physical health and fitness. And it wasn't until I figured out that relationships was my lead domino, that if I take care of relationships first, everything else falls into place, including my emotional health. So, because I used to think it was emotions. If I can control my emotions, I'll control my behavior. No, if I improve the quality of my relationships with the men specifically in my life, but then also Jenny Lee and everybody else, that's what has the biggest impact on all the other areas for sure. So quality relationships is where it begins.
And the quality of the relationship with yourself as well.
I'm really glad that you said that, and I'm really choked that I didn't say it first. Yes, absolutely. That is, it's like Mark said in my podcast, it is not selfish to be, or how did he put it? Something like self-work is not selfish.
I think it's self-care.
Self-care is not selfish. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so like, that's why every single morning, my morning routine is an hour and a half to 2 hours. That is 100% spent on me, making sure I'm building my relationship with every aspect of myself, including that negative voice in my head that I call the block. Like if I can build a good relationship with that guy, and I know he's here to push me as opposed to pulling me down, all my negative emotions, if I can build good relationships with those, yeah, it all starts with you. You're right, Cheryl.
Oh my gosh, that's an excellent point. Thank you so much for saying that. And thanks again, once again, for being on the show. I can't thank you enough.
Pleasure.
I'm so glad that you tracked me down.
So am I. Thank you.
And everybody, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Please do check out Carl's podcast. It is amazing. He does have some incredible guests on it. Now he's threatening to have me on his show as well. So stay tuned for that. And wait for his book. I know that thing is coming. And go to his Instagram page. Follow him. Obviously, he has some incredible insights and wonderful things to say, things that we can all learn from. Please do share this episode with all the men in your life and the women in your life. And once again, do remember to love yourself with all your heart, because self-care isn't selfish. And that is the way of the FemiNinja.